Have you ever had that feeling, the one where you're sitting with your family and you just feel like the black sheep, the one who never quite belonged? Well, if that's you, you're in exactly the right place. We are about to reframe that entire experience for you. This isn't a story about failure, trust me. It's a story about your evolution. So let's get into why that feeling of being different might have actually been your greatest strength all along.
It really is the question that's at the heart of everything, isn't it? That feeling that you were a puzzle piece, but from a totally different box. You probably weren't even trying to be difficult, so why did it always feel like such a battle just to be understood? Well, turns out, psychology has some pretty fascinating answers.
And because they didn't quite get it, the labels probably started flying. The troublemaker, just for asking why. Too sensitive, for picking up on things everyone else was ignoring. The problem, or my personal favorite, just plain difficult. And look, those words sting. They sting because they completely miss the point of who you actually are.
All right, so let's just tear down the biggest misconception right here, right now. This was never about you being flawed. Nope, it's about a fundamental mismatch between how your brain is wired to process the world and the way your family system was set up to run.
So here it is, the first major reframe. While your family might have looked at you and thought, ugh, you're just being difficult, the psychological reality was something else entirely. You were prioritizing truth over tradition. You just couldn't bring yourself to accept things because that's just how we've always done it. That phrase probably drove you crazy, right?
And there's actually a term for this. It's called cognitive independence. It's a mindset that's all about prioritizing analytical reasoning. Things have to make logical sense. So you see, you weren't rebelling just for the heck of it. Your brain is literally wired to seek out the why behind everything. Blind obedience? Yeah, that's just not in your operating system.
And this is so crucial to get. You weren't the troublemaker, you were the innovator. You were the one who instinctively knew, hey, this system is kind of broken and I refuse to just inherit it because it's familiar. That's not a flaw, my friend, that's a feature. Now, when you have that kind of independence, it almost always leads to another painful feeling. That slow, creeping sense of distance from the very people you're supposed to be closest to.
From their perspective, it probably felt like you were abandoning them, like you were leaving them behind. But the psychological truth, it's so much simpler, and honestly, a lot less personal. You were simply outgrowing them. Your world was getting bigger, while theirs might have been staying exactly the same.
Psychologists have a great name for this: value drift. It's this totally natural process where your worldview, what you care about, it evolves as you get older. The real issue pops up when you're drifting, but your group is stuck in what you could call identity stagnation. All of a sudden, those family dinners feel pointless because you're just not on the same frequency anymore.
This all leads to an incredibly powerful idea called post-traumatic growth. It means all that isolation, all those challenges, they didn't break you. They actually forced you to level up, to mature and adapt. So you see, you weren't leaving them behind. You were evolving while they were stuck repeating the same old patterns. You were busy writing a brand new script.
Okay, this brings us to another classic black sheep characteristic. You're the one who always has to point out the giant pink elephant in the middle of the living room, even when nobody else wants to admit it's there. And for that, what do you get? You get labeled as negative, or maybe a pessimist. But the reality is, you weren't trying to be negative. You were just spotting the unhealthy patterns, the risks, the contradictions that literally everyone else in the family was conditioned to ignore.
This ability you have, it's a form of intelligence. It's called observational intelligence. It's that super high sensitivity that lets you read the tiny micro behaviors, to hear the slight hesitation in someone's voice and see the glitches in the family software that nobody else will ever acknowledge. You're basically the family's sysadmin.
And this is why being the truth teller can feel so lonely. Think about it. They pushed you away, not because you were wrong, but precisely because you were right. Your awareness, your clarity, was a direct threat to the comfortable illusions they needed to keep things just the way they were. But here's the twist. Being pushed away like that, it forces a really unique kind of development. It basically makes you build a foundation inside yourself that can't be shaken by what other people think. It forces you to forge power from within. See, most people, they follow a path where their self-worth is built on getting pats on the back, praise, awards, fitting in, external validation. But your path, it was different. Because that praise was so often denied to you, you had no choice but to learn how to build your self-worth from the inside out.
And when you do that, you develop something psychology calls an internal locus of control. And let me tell you, it is a superpower. It means your sense of who you are isn't riding on whether people approve of you or not. This creates what's called a low social dependency, which makes you fundamentally immune to manipulation that's based on that fear of being kicked out of the group.
So all that so-called weirdness, it was never about being strange. It was a sign of incredibly high identity integrity. It was your deep, profound refusal to wear a mask or to just play a character in someone else's story to make them more comfortable. You insisted on being the author of your own.
So let's bring all this home. We've torn down all those old, painful labels. Now, it's time to give you a new one. One that actually captures the true power and the purpose of your role in that whole system.
Okay, here's the final, ultimate comparison. The family unit, it often runs on something called Normative Social Influence. Fancy term, but it basically just means groupthink. Doing what's familiar feels safe, so everyone does it. But you operate on independent cognitive processing. You do what makes sense, you do what feels true and logical, even if it means you have to stand completely alone to do it.
That's who you are. Not the black sheep, not the problem, not the troublemaker. You are the cycle breaker. You are the one person in that entire system who had the independence and the clarity to stop destructive generational patterns from just repeating and repeating and repeating. So let's end with this one thought. Please, never again look at your experience as a failure to fit in. See it for what it really truly is. It is a sign that you were wired for evolution, but you were placed in a system that was wired for repetition. Your journey was never about being left out. It was always about moving forward.